Hey guys, this is Matt. Welcome back to the channel, and this video is going to pick up where the last video left off when I'm making the last of the repairs I need to make to the bezel that goes around the head unit and the air conditioning controls. So I'll go ahead and make the last of the repairs that I need to make for that, and at that point it's really going to be ready for paint, but there's probably a few more things I could go ahead and do while I'm waiting on the weather to clear up and some things that I can get outside and get some painting done. After I get those repairs done on the bezel, I am going to go ahead and put some new LED lights inside of my gauge cluster, and I'm going to go through that in some detail. So I will warn you, this is probably a little bit of a talky video, and there's not really going to show a lot because once the lights are installed in the cluster, you can't really see them. I'll go ahead and warn you now that this may not apply to a lot of you that don't have RX7s, but the concepts are probably going to be a lot of the same. So let's go ahead and get into the last of the repairs of this bezel. I let this dry overnight just after I did another round of wet sanding, and again, I'm just trying to get all that finish off and not really deal with any of the cracks or not cracks, but scratches. The scratching and some of the pitting and things that I have are not terrible, but I would like to go ahead and get those filled in before I get this painted. I did call around this morning to see if places had the product that I was looking for to fill this in, and nobody had it today, so it won't be in for a couple days. So there are some other repairs and items that I need to go ahead and do. I think the first thing I'm going to try to do is get my heat gun out and see if I can go ahead and remove these, because I think it'll just make life easier if I can. Yeah, I'll just have to be super careful about taking those off. I'll mess with it for a minute and see what happens. Otherwise, the next thing I can do is go ahead and fix these tabs. I'll get my stapler out and show you guys how to do that real quick, but let me get my heat gun and see if I can pop these out. So this is really nerve-wracking because it feels like as hard as you have to pull to get some of this off, it's just going to break at any second. But initially I used my little heat gun, and it was actually getting the plastics too hot. It was starting to actually make the plastics bend. And I was trying to be real careful, use a low setting, not apply too much heat. So then what I did is I just switched over to a hair dryer, and that's been getting this hot enough to get it loose. These are easy to pull off because there's really not a lot of adhesive. It's just kind of around the perimeter and kind of on the inside where these mount. And of course, like, these pieces are all really flexible, so you really just have to be careful and take my time with it. This one's going to be more of a challenge because there's a lot more surface area for the adhesive, but I'll do the same thing. I'll get my hair dryer out and get this hot and see if I can start lifting it up. I'll get this one off, and then we'll be in good shape, and then we can continue making some of the other repairs that we need to make. Again, just taking your time with the blow dryer was enough, but I was almost going to give up on this because as I was pulling on it, I could hear kind of little creaks and pops that I was concerned about breaking something. So I'll probably just set these aside. I don't want to mess with them too much. They will need a good cleaning, but for the most part, I'll try to leave these alone so I don't mess up the adhesive. And I may go ahead and tape these areas off so I don't get like any cleaner or crud or anywhere. That way, I mean, there's really not much adhesive left, just very little, but it wouldn't hurt to probably go ahead and tape those off. So next thing we can go ahead and do now that we got this off is go ahead and try to make new tabs to repair these. So let me clean up my area and get things set up, and I'll check back in a second. I've got some cutoffs here from where I made some cuts on the rear bins, and it's almost the exact thickness, maybe a little bit thicker than these tabs. So really what I'm going to do is I'm thinking I can just cut these with some shears. I'll basically have to build one for this and then just kind of match it here, and then this one I can tell where the hole needs to go. This one I don't think I can, so I'll have to just leave this one alone for now. But what I'll basically do is get a rough idea on how wide this needs to be, mark it up, cut it out a couple strips with my shears, and then I need to get this cleaned up so that we can butt this back up to it, apply some hot staples so that these can reattach. I'll do the same thing over here, and then I may be able to go ahead and drill the hole out for this one before I install it so that I know exactly where things need to go, and then I can kind of do the same thing over here until I get this in the car and know exactly where that one needs to be drilled out. So I'll get this marked out, go ahead and cut a couple strips out, which this one's just a little too small. So once I have those strips cut out, I'll show you the setup for the hot stapler and get these installed. So I went ahead and just kind of roughly estimated how long the tab probably was, originally. And I made this one a little bit longer because I'm missing more material over here. And then this one just a little bit shorter so that I have enough room. So what I'm gonna do is probably go ahead and clean up the edge here and make this nice and square and flush. And then probably do the same thing here, at least make these two sides square and flush so that when I butt this up to it, I've got a nice clean line so that we can get that attached. This one, same thing, just make a nice, try to clean this up as much as I can. I'll get out some sandpaper probably and maybe some razors and just kind of clean this stuff up. And I'll show you guys how I'm gonna repair these with the hot stapler. So I got my hot stapler out, and it's just it's something I picked up from Eastwood. If you need it, you need it. And I think once you have it, you'll find that you'll make a lot of repairs with it. So it comes with 3 different types of little wire staples. There's this one, which is really, kind of used for aligning panels and things like that. Maybe small repairs like this. There's one that's more wavy that is for more of a structural repair. And there's one that's meant to go in the corner. So basically, I think I looked it up, or on the back of this, it says it's ABS plastic. The plastic, if I remember correctly from the bins, was polypropylene. So they're not the same plastics, but it'll be close enough. So I'm just gonna set this on low to start. The trick is gonna be lining everything up while I insert the stapler. So basically once you start doing this, you kind of gotta go with it. So I am going to make sure I have got some stuff so I don't burn my fingers. But once this is in here, basically now I can heat this up and then press it into the plastic. And I'm just gonna put one of these on each side of where the hole goes. So let me hit this hot. So it's starting to smoke, and then just carefully, and then I'm gonna let it cool while I hold it. I know that was really quick, and that's just how quick it goes. So it didn't get lined up perfectly, but I think it'll be okay for what we need, just for a little tab. And again, this is all kind of hot, so be careful if you do this. So what I'll do is go ahead and set up and put one on the other side and let that cool. And then I'll do something similar for the tab over here. This one was much easier to put on because it, just a bigger piece to hold on to. That one looks a little sloppy. So we'll have to sand that one down and ignore that. But the other nice thing about using the stapler is I can just use an extra stapler to help melt up the plastic. So as you can kind of see, it leaves a little bit of a rough edge. And so I can snip these off here in a second, and then use this to kind of help basically smooth that plastic back and conceal the fastener. So let me get these snipped off, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So with the tabs repaired, I'll go ahead and try to sand these down and clean them up a little bit. And then I think the final thing that I will do as part of the repair will be, I'll probably go ahead and get some plastic filler and go ahead and fill in some of these gaps. But I mean, that is, I would probably break this part off before I'd break these off. So it does make a very strong repair. So definitely for I think $100 or whatever, I got this on sale. It's something to keep around because you'll never know when you'll find, I mean, this could be used for so many things. Now, the booklet says that these staples are stainless steel, and I do have a magnet here, and they seem to be, I don't know what kind of stainless steel that would be that is attracted to magnets, or maybe the ones I got were steel, but you could use these in bumpers, headlights, whatever, and again, it does make a really strong repair. Now, it's not going to be a pretty repair because you are melting the plastic, and you may, depending on what kind of cutoff tool you've got, you may leave a little bit of the staple exposed. So what I'll do is go ahead and sand and kind of grind some of this stuff flush so that it's as smooth as I can get it. And then I think the final step, once everything is fitted, will be to use some plastic filler to go ahead and just fill in some of these gaps and sand it down and make it look at least like there is no crack there. But I will be able to test fit this piece and figure out where I need to drill the hole, and so I can relatively match this. But I do have the center console still in here, so I should be able to line these up, figure out where that hole needs to go, and I can drill it out just a little bit oversized so that if it's not exact, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. But for now, I'll go ahead and get these all sanded down, and then we'll try to figure out where this hole needs to go. So I'm pretty happy with how this other one over here turned out. Like I said, just easier because I had more material to work with. And this one is definitely looks a little rough, but the hole's where it needs to be, and I can clean this up with a little bit of epoxy and sand that down, and you'll never really know because it'll be covered up anyway. So that's really the last of the repairs I need to make on this. You know, now that I do have the all the little gauges out, I do need to probably go ahead and sand this pretty thoroughly. And like I said, there are some deeper scratches and some pitting, and I was going to fill some of this with body filler or plastic filler. I'm almost wondering if I sand that a little bit more, because you could just barely feel it, if I'd be able to fill that in with some primer. So I've got some thinking to do about that, but it's really not bad, and considering, you know, it's not ever going to be perfect, you know, considering how the rest of the car is. But I'll go ahead and sand this some more and see if I can get any of this out, and then make a decision on whether it's ready to go ahead and paint. I went ahead and wet sanded the whole thing with 600 grit sandpaper and cleaned it down really well. And then it was going to bug me if I left some of those scratches, so I decided to fill those in, those areas that had some scratches and gouges, and I just used some traditional JB Weld. I think that'll let me get that down in there, and then I can sand it all flush. And I went ahead and put some around where I made these repairs, and again, I'll be able to sand all that and just kind of conceal some of those some cracks and things. So this is gonna have to sit overnight, let all that dry and cure. I'll need to move on to something else. So either I could go ahead and pull the door cards, because the door card, the handles and things are gonna need to be painted, or I could go ahead and do the light bulbs in the gauge cluster. So I might actually go ahead and do that because it's relatively easy, and then I'll clean all this off so I can get the door cards set up here. I have my cluster hood upside down so that we could see the back of where all the gauges go. Each of these, there's some blue, some brown, black. Each of these is one of the lights that, you know, does something for the dash. You know, these bigger ones are just kind of general lighting, and then, you know, like these are different warnings and sensor lights, you know, turn signals, etc. My car does not have cruise control, so I have 19 total lights. If you have cruise control, then I guess you would have 20. Of course, there is another one that comes down here where the lighter goes, but not just on the cluster itself. There's 19. I don't want to say they're a specialty bulb. They're a size that I wasn't able to really track down specifically that exact size, but doing research online, people said that the 74 size bulbs were the replacements. These seem to be a little bit bigger than a 74. The connector's the same, but the bulb itself is a little bit bigger. I am going to go ahead and do an conversion over to LED. I've read mixed things about doing that. Some people have said that because they don't draw enough power, sometimes they won't turn off. Some people say that they're really concentrated light, so you don't get a nice light spread. I've read multiple things online. I figured it was at least worth testing it out myself. If you wanted to make this simple on yourself, you could just do all white lights, whether they're LED or new, and that would work just fine, because like turn signals and high beams and that kind of thing, it actually has a colored lens, and that's where, you know, if it's blue or green or whatever, it's really just that lens. But if you want to make that color pop a little bit more, you can get the same color. So put a blue in the high beam, for example, or a green in the turn signals, and that'll just accentuate that light color. I've decided to go that route, where I basically have picked up various colors so that I can swap those out. But in general, for most of the lighting, I did just stick with white for the general lighting, because some of the sensors are yellowish, orangish color, and you know, like the backlight on the for where the odometer is and all that stuff, it's kind of built in, so you can't really change the color. If you did put a different color bulb in, you're not going to get the same color as the bulb. When I started this project, I realized I was actually missing a couple, so I don't know if one of the previous owners just got tired of looking at a warning light, so they just pulled it out and left it out, or it fell out, who knows. But I was able to find these on Amazon as replacements, and if you just Google Toshiba V2 Socket, you should be able to find that. But I can put a link to where I got these. They were pretty cheap for a pack of 4. So I did get some new ones if some of these are broken, but I was missing one anyway. Eventually, I will take this completely apart and probably do some other mods to this, like, you know, calibrate it for miles per hour, switch the kilometers to miles on the odometer, and clean all the gauges in the cluster. But for now, I don't want to introduce any new issues with the car, because we've done so much work on the car since the last time it was powered on. So I will just leave this alone for now, clean it up, swap these bulbs out, and then I'll just put this back in the car as is, and then a future project could be taking this apart and doing those conversions. I picked up all my bulbs from superbrightleds.com. I'll put a link down below just to their website. They didn't sponsor this or anything, but I was able to add all this to my cart and just make one order. And they usually run sales, you know, different holidays and things like that. So the 194 bulbs say they are a 360-degree bulb. So I expect that these will put out, 360 degrees of light, which should help with the spread. The smaller 74 size bulbs, they say they're 120 degrees. So it's really only going to cover, basically the three sides of that. These may not be as bright as I'm expecting, but again, I won't know until I put it in the car. 4 of the 194s in cool white, and then all the rest, I've got blue, green, red, and white of the 74s. I've already pulled some of these out just to get them loose. You do want to be extremely careful with this. I don't know if it's called a motherboard or what it is. Mine has a lot of crap on it, so I'm gonna probably go around and clean it up. You'll be able to twist these, pull these out, and, grab the bulb that's in there and wiggle those out carefully. Once you got them out, then you can just pop one of your new ones in. So I'm gonna get this turned around so I can pay attention to what I'm doing. And then once I have it back together, I really won't be able to show you anything until it's back in the car. So I may just do a quick summary of what I did, but I won't be able to show you how it looks until we get it back in the car. I'm gonna turn this around so I can get working on it, and I'll check back in later once I've got this complete. So there's obviously nothing exciting to show you because it looks exactly the same. What I'll do is I'll put a graphic up while I sit here and tell you a couple things. I did go ahead and put a white bulb next to a red bulb, so that we can see what the difference actually is in the car. So really this one will say white because that's what I put in there, but it should be a red if you want to match the color of the screen in the inside. So nothing tricky. The LED bulb is a little bit taller than the standard 194, so this one was a little bit snug trying to get in it, but just being careful, I was able to twist that in. This bulb in here is a little tight to get to, so just some needle nose pliers and able to twist that out. That's going to be it for this. And again, I'll follow up with you guys on this one, and once it's in the car and we can run through and turn all the lights on and off and test everything out. I did try to wipe it down as good as I could without doing too much damage. It is a little bit dusty here and there, but like I said, eventually this will come apart. I'll do some upgrades to this and see what we can do to get this swapped over to some mile per hour measurements. But for now, I'm going to set this aside. The next thing I probably need to work on is the instruments, or the turn signals and all the various controls on the steering wheel. Really, it needs a good cleaning, so I'll probably go ahead and do that now, and then this can go ahead and get installed in the car. Then the cluster can get in the car, and then at that point, other than fixing the aircon bezel, I'll be just able to put the seats in and deal with the doors. But I'll go ahead and clean this up next. All right, guys, if you've made it to this part of the video, I really appreciate it. I know this is one of those videos, it's just people are gonna get triggered by it because I talk too much, and unfortunately sometimes fixing the car and walking through it, that's just the way it is. It's going to help people in the future that maybe are doing this project on their cars. These are not my favorite type of videos either, but I filmed it, so I figured I'll go ahead and release it because it's probably going to help somebody out. Now, I think with the cluster and the bezel put back together, it'll really be time to get back into the interior of the car and try to get all this stuff installed, because once I've got all the stuff installed, I need to go ahead and get the car started, make sure everything is going to be working as it should, and that we haven't introduced any new problems to the car. My next video related to the RX7 will probably be just that, me trying to get everything in the car so I can get it started. And I was also thinking, now that it's the end of 2019, I might do just a little recap video on what's kind of the status on all the projects, because these videos that you're watching were kind of recorded over the last couple months, and since then I've obviously made more progress on the car and made some more plans. So my next video might just be a quick catch-up video so that you can see what's going on with the Datsun, the RX7 obviously, and anything I've got planned for the BMW over the next year, and whatever else I've got going on. So that might just be an extra video that I'll get filmed and get out to you guys. So I have taken up enough of your time already, so I really appreciate it. As always, if you guys have any comments or questions, leave them down below, and check out any of the links that I've left down in the description to some of the things and parts I used in my video, and hopefully one of the next videos we get to hear some engine noises. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to see you in the next one.